Have you ever wondered how billionaires like Jeff Bezos predicted the internet boom 20 years before it happened? Or how Warren Buffett saw the 2008 financial crisis coming while everyone else was celebrating? Today, I'm going to reveal 5 closely guarded secrets that the world's wealthiest individuals use to predict the future of money. And by the end of this video, you'll have the same tools they use to stay decades ahead of economic trends. What I'm about to share isn't taught in business schools, isn't discussed in mainstream financial media, and most people will never discover these methods because they're too busy reacting to what's already happened instead of positioning themselves for what's coming next. These aren't just theories either. These are proven strategies that have created more wealth than any stock tip or investment advice you'll ever hear. The first secret that separates billionaires from everyone else is something I call demographic wave reading. While most people focus on quarterly earnings reports and daily market movements, the ultra-wealthy are studying population trends that won't fully materialize for decades. They understand that money flows where demographics demand it, and they position themselves accordingly. Consider this. Ray Dalio didn't become one of the world's most successful hedge fund managers by following the crowd. He built his fortune by recognizing that aging populations in developed countries would create massive shifts in spending patterns, healthcare demands, and investment flows. While everyone else was chasing tech stocks in the late 90s, he was already positioning for the silver economy that we're seeing explode today. The secret lies in understanding that demographics move like glaciers, slowly but with unstoppable force. When you know that China's population is aging rapidly, you can predict increased demand for healthcare technology and elder care services. When you understand that millennials are entering their prime earning years, you can anticipate shifts in housing preferences, consumption patterns, and investment behaviors. Billionaires don't just look at these trends, they map them forward 30 to 50 years and ask themselves, where will the money be flowing then? They're not trying to time the market for next quarter, they're positioning for the next generation of wealth creation. The second secret is what I call technology convergence mapping. Most people see technological advancement as linear, but billionaires understand it's exponential and convergent. They don't just invest in individual technologies, they identify where multiple technological trends will intersect to create entirely new markets. Elon Musk didn't just see electric vehicles as a good investment opportunity. He recognized the convergence of battery technology improvements, environmental regulations, autonomous driving capabilities, and changing consumer preferences. He positioned himself at the intersection of these trends, creating multiple companies that would benefit from their convergence. This isn't about predicting which specific technology will win. It's about identifying the underlying forces that will drive technological adoption. Billionaires study patent filings, research publications, and venture capital investments to understand where breakthrough technologies are developing. They look for patterns in innovation cycles and position themselves to benefit from technological convergence before it becomes obvious to everyone else. The key insight here is that the biggest wealth creation opportunities happen when multiple technologies mature simultaneously and create new possibilities that weren't previously achievable. The smartphone revolution wasn't just about better phones. It was about the convergence of miniaturized processors, high-speed internet, touchscreen technology, and digital payment systems. The third secret involves regulatory trend analysis. And this is where billionaires demonstrate their most sophisticated thinking. They understand that government policies and regulations don't just respond to current conditions. They shape future economic landscapes in predictable ways. Warren Buffett has openly discussed how he studies political trends and regulatory cycles to identify investment opportunities. He doesn't just look at what politicians are promising, he analyzes the underlying economic and social pressures that will force policy changes regardless of who's in power. Consider how environmental regulations create investment opportunities. Smart money doesn't wait for carbon taxes to be implemented. They position themselves in clean energy and carbon capture technologies before the regulations make these investments mandatory. They understand that political pressure builds slowly, but eventually reaches a tipping point where change becomes inevitable. The billionaire approach to regulatory analysis involves studying international patterns. They look at how similar policies have played out in other countries and use that information to predict how regulations will evolve domestically. They're not just reacting to policy changes, they're anticipating them and positioning themselves to benefit from the economic shifts that will follow. This extends beyond environmental policy to include healthcare regulations, financial system changes, and international trade agreements. Billionaires understand that regulatory changes often create winner-take-all scenarios where early positioning can generate enormous returns. The fourth secret is psychological cycle mapping, and this is perhaps the most sophisticated tool in the billionaire playbook. They understand that human psychology drives economic cycles in predictable patterns, and they use this knowledge to position themselves counter to crowd psychology. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime partner, has extensively studied psychological biases and their impact on investment decisions. He understands that markets are driven by human emotions and that these emotions follow predictable patterns. Fear and greed cycles aren't random. They're driven by underlying psychological mechanisms that can be studied and anticipated. Billionaires don't just understand these cycles intellectually, they use them strategically. They know that when everyone is fearful, opportunities are abundant. When everyone is greedy, it's time to be cautious. But more importantly, they understand the timing of these cycles and position themselves before the psychological shifts occur. This involves studying sentiment indicators, social media trends, and consumer confidence measures, not just as market data, but as psychological indicators. They understand that mass psychology moves in waves, and that these waves create predictable investment opportunities for those who can remain objective while others are driven by emotion. The sophisticated billionaire approach involves understanding that psychological cycles operate at different time frames. There are daily emotional cycles, seasonal patterns, generational attitude shifts, and long-term cultural changes. Each of these creates different types of opportunities for those who can identify and exploit them. The fifth and final secret is what I call system architecture analysis. This is the most advanced level of billionaire thinking, and it involves understanding how entire economic systems are structured and how they're likely to evolve over time. Billionaires don't just participate in existing systems, they understand the underlying architecture of those systems and position themselves to benefit from systemic changes. They study central bank policies, international monetary systems, and structural economic trends that will reshape how money flows through the global economy. Consider how some billionaires position themselves for the digital currency revolution, not by buying Bitcoin, but by understanding how digital currencies would change payment systems, banking infrastructure, and international money transfers. They invested in the infrastructure that would support these changes rather than just the currencies themselves. This level of analysis requires understanding complex systems thinking. Billionaires study how different parts of the economic system interact with each other and how changes in one area will cascade through other areas. They're not just looking for individual opportunities, they're positioning themselves to benefit from systemic transformations. The key insight here is that the biggest wealth creation opportunities come from understanding how systems evolve and positioning yourself to benefit from that evolution. This might mean investing in infrastructure that will support future economic activity, or positioning yourself to benefit from changes in how value is created and distributed. What makes these secrets so powerful is that they work together synergistically. Demographic trends drive technology adoption, which influences regulatory changes, which creates psychological cycles, which impacts system architecture. Billionaires don't use these tools in isolation. They integrate them into comprehensive frameworks for understanding future economic conditions. The most important thing to understand is that these aren't just investment strategies, they're ways of thinking about the future. Billionaires have trained themselves to think in longer time horizons, to see patterns that others miss, and to position themselves ahead of major economic shifts. You don't need billions of dollars to start applying these principles. You can begin by studying demographic trends in your area and thinking about how they might create opportunities. You can start following technological developments and thinking about how they might converge. You can pay attention to regulatory trends and consider how they might reshape industries. The key is to start thinking like a billionaire thinks, focusing on long-term trends rather than short-term fluctuations. These secrets aren't just about predicting the future of money. They're about positioning yourself to benefit from that future, regardless of what specific form it takes. Remember, billionaires aren't just lucky or more intelligent than everyone else. They've developed systematic approaches to understanding and anticipating change. These 5 secrets represent the core of how they think about the future and position themselves to benefit from it. If you found these insights valuable, make sure to subscribe for more content about wealth-building strategies and financial intelligence. And remember, the future belongs to those who can see it coming and position themselves accordingly. The question isn't whether these changes will happen. It's whether you'll be ready when they do.